So listen, guys, usually I start with a illustration of some sort and I say something, but the truth of the matter is the best illustration I have for you tonight is actually in the Bible. All right. The truth of the matter is there's a parable called the Good Samaritan. And there's somebody who stands up and they basically decide that they want to challenge Jesus. Oh, that was a mistake. You can't go stand up to Jesus. But they stood up and they wanted to challenge Jesus, and they wanted to find out who is their neighbor that they are supposed to love. Who is this so-called neighbor? Let me read this to you in the Bible. It says, Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by to the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt, there's our word, compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his donkey and he took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here. Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, the one who showed him mercy. Then Jesus said, yes, now go and do the same. We are in a world right now where everybody wants to cancel everything. And yet the question I posed to you when I did my original video was, what if Jesus had canceled you? If he had canceled us, we wouldn't be standing here today. Jesus did decide to cancel some people one time. He canceled the entire earth through a flood, except for those who were left to sit in an ark and repopulate the world. But then he decided to have our word again, compassion on all of us. And he said he would never do that again. So tonight I want to just talk to you from compassion culture, because true compassion demands action. Hey, I need somebody to write that in the chat right now so that you get it. True compassion demands action. You see, I believe that God wants everybody to live a life of compassion for others. Because when others are struggling, we won't just sit back and feel sorry for them. We will actually take action and do something. But the question that I'd like to pose to you tonight is, are we actually living a lifestyle of compassion? Like, are we genuinely caring about those who are going through something? Or have we simply sat back and settled and said, hey, everybody goes through something, so I guess we all just gonna have to suffer in our own way, because everybody goes through something. You know, I wonder how many people we've come in contact with and we genuinely didn't know how to give compassion. Or maybe you're sitting in a position right now and someone tried to give you compassion and you didn't know how to receive it. You know what I'm talking about. When somebody genuinely wants to listen, they want to help, but we don't want that. We want to just vent and get it off our chest, and we want people to just find our way, that we don't want to hear what God actually has to say. Or could it be that compassion is just not simply liking a post on social media, but it's actually loving a person? Oh, I'm gonna say that again. Could it be that compassion is not simply liking a post, but actually loving a person? You see, the truth of the matter is I'm guilty of it too. That person puts something on their social media and they say, oh, my father just was diagnosed with cancer. Please pray for me. And we just hit the like button. Or somebody says, I was just in a major car accident today and I don't know how I'm going to make these insurance payments, or I don't know how I'm going to get to and from work. And we hit the like button, but we don't actually step out in action and actually try to do something and show compassion. You see, the definition of compassion means to suffer with someone, to suffer alongside them, to suffer with someone, to suffer alongside them. You see, Jesus paints us an amazing picture of that. Do you remember Jesus hanging on the cross? Did you remember who was to his right and to his left? It was two people who were also hanging on a cross, who were suffering, and Jesus stood in the middle and he suffered alongside him. While Jesus was standing in the middle suffering, he suffered along two people. One person who wanted nothing to do with him, and one person who said, I never knew you, but will you remember me? You see, Jesus knew that it wasn't all just about him. It was what he was doing for us. You see, when we cancel things, we are ultimately telling God that that he does not have the ability to change the problem. I know it's one of those things that we do unnaturally, but when we cancel things, we are essentially telling God that he is not big enough to fix the problem. Let me give you 3 things today to understand about compassion. All right. The first thing is that compassion interrupts. This man was on a journey from Jerusalem to Jericho. 18 miles he was set out to go on a journey, and he was interrupted by a man who had been beaten and left for dead. He was interrupted on the journey in the direction he was going, and I simply came to remind you today that all interruptions are not bad interruptions. We need to understand that sometimes just simply listening and doing the one thing that person might need, it could change the dynamic of that person forever. We have to understand that all interruptions are not bad. And this Good Samaritan shows us that. The next thing we need to understand is that compassion, it costs you something. I remember when I was at work one day, and for those who don't know my occupation, I'm a police officer. And I was at work and I took somebody and dropped them at a dealership. And I was in my police car. My police car was sitting there. While at the dealership, a young man got into the car. He worked there. He had his earbuds in his car and he was moving a car at his job and he was backing the car up. Well, he never saw my car sitting there and he backed right into the police car. This young man, he felt so bad and so horrible. The owners of the company, they came running outside. They were completely upset with him. They saw what happened. They tried to make compensation for me and they said, we're going to fire this young man. And I stood and I said, no, please do not fire this young man. Do not fire him. He made a mistake. He's young. I remember I told them, listen, if you fire this man, I'll have a bigger issue with that than just dealing with fixing the car. They stepped in, they decided to fix the car, and I went and found that young man. I talked to that young man and I said, with tears in his eyes, because he knew he was going to lose his job, I said, you're not going to lose your job today. I began to talk to him and I said, you know what? It's all going to be okay. Do you know who Jesus Christ is? We began to have a conversation and he had swayed away from the Lord for a while. But he said, you know what? This was maybe an opportunity because he felt like God was trying to get his attention from different ways. And then he had the nerve to look at me and say, wow, I never could see a police officer in that light. And I thought that was such a powerful statement. Later on, this young man would call me months down the road, months, to tell me he had gotten a new job, to tell me that he had found a church, and that because of our conversation, that he had rededicated himself back to Christ. I truly believe that my day was interrupted that day, but it was interrupted for the right reasons. And I want to make sure that you guys get that sometimes all of our interruptions are not bad. You know, there's a time in my life where I had received my niece, and I had received her when she was 2 years old, and she called me dad. And I thought that was the greatest gift that God really could have given me because I didn't know how to raise a daughter, but we had to take her in because she couldn't live with her mom at the time. I raised her all the way till 10, and then God said, hey, it's time for you to move on. You know, just like this parable with the Samaritan, it's going to cost you something to show compassion. You see, this man, it cost him his time. It cost him his energy. It cost him money. It cost him losing the ability to get where he was supposed to go on time. But he saved that man's life. You know, when I had my niece living with me, I thought she was going to live with me forever. But you know what? God had other plans. Her mom got herself back together. Her grandmother got involved. And you know what? Now she's living with her grandmother. At the time, I was devastated. I thought, I've been raising her. She should be with me. And God said, no, I know it cost you something, Larry. It cost you your time and your money and your energy. But I was using you to do a new thing so that she could be with the people that really were going to take her to a new level. And so I thank God for that. Because the truth is, the last point is that compassion changes lives. And I believe that I definitely changed that little girl's life. And I changed that young man's life. But the truth of the matter is that those people, they really changed my life. They changed how I operated going forward. They showed me something by their way of me showing compassion on them. It did something in me. You see, in this story, the Good Samaritan, he leaves money and he goes, and that man's life was going to be changed forever. Isn't it funny that later on in the Bible that Jesus, being a Jew, would come in contact with a Samaritan woman at a well one day and would change her life completely? Not only change her life, but she would go to a village and that she would come back and bring those people to meet Jesus and change an entire village when Jews and Samaritans didn't get along? Isn't it funny that God would look down and have compassion on us and say that compassion is the one thing that's going to send his son to die? And in the moment where Jesus is about to die, he looks right out and says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is true compassion. And God wanted me to leave you with this word tonight. Compassion changes everything. Compassion changes everything. Me and my wife are expecting our third child, and we have 2 daughters currently, and we're expecting a son this time. You know, compassion is like that. My mind was focused on how I was going to raise little girls all of my life. But then God decided to give me a son, and it changed my whole perspective on life. All it did was change the sex of the baby, but my whole world is now changed. I'm not looking at what I was just doing for little girls. I now have to look at what I'm going to do for how I'm going to raise a little boy into a man. Compassion changes everything. It gives you a new outlook. It takes you down different paths. It will interrupt your life, but not always for bad things. It might cost you something, but at the end, not only will that person's life change, but your life will change. And you never know where compassion is going to lead you. So maybe if it's as simple as praying for somebody, maybe sending someone money in Cash App, maybe cooking them food, maybe listening to them, maybe going and bringing them something that they need. But it really starts with a heart change. I want to encourage you tonight, when you talk to people, look at them in their face and have compassion for them about what they're going through, and allow the Holy Spirit to lead you and let it go where it's going to go, and you will be surprised of where you end up. Compassion changes everything. God bless you guys.